Good evening. What you see here are called feeder tongs, and they're used for feeding reptiles of all different kinds. I use them to feed my snakes, and you have to apply a significant amount of pressure onto whatever you are using them for to make sure what's inside does not slip out. I use them for mice and rats, and you need to hold on really tight to make sure that it still stays inside of the teeth. Now these have a very similar design, but a very different purpose in comparison to the tongs and clamps used in American abortions. The procedure of abortion is not morally justifiable, but you and I, my audience, all have a very similar shared premise of morality, that being we are both Christians. Our morality is derived straight from the Bible, and we are supposed to follow God's advice on how to value moral life. Ever since I discovered abortion, I have been extensively researching what causes some people to devalue human life and how to combat those certain expectations and ideals. The statistics on abortion are an absolute tragedy, and the Alan Guttmacher Institute reported in 2020 that there was 160,000 abortions recorded within the US. This excludes any abortions that were done under the radar. The process of killing children by abortion is protected in the United States. Despite all legal fallacies, people absolutely have a right to not be murdered. All fetuses qualify as people, and therefore, abortion truly is murder. Going forward, I will explain each one of these statements. Murder is defined as the unlawful, premeditated killing of a human being. Basic morality already justifies this principle. Christian institutions justify this principle within their morality and belief systems, just like the ones that you and I both share. Morality in us is derived straight from the Bible, which is God's word. In secular circles, we can even still observe this belief. The Bible justifies this principle directly in the Ten Commandments, which is Exodus 12:13, and in Deuteronomy 5:17. Our justice system also upholds this principle straight on. Broad laws against murder already illustrate that this principle exists in basic human life. Consequences for murder use the exact same thing, and the argument for abortion itself from some pro-choice circles, which argues in favor of the life of the mother, illustrates this principle, no matter how contradictory that may be. If humans have a right to not be killed, humans in utero still deserve to live. Fetuses in utero are people who deserve the fundamental right to live their own lives. Science already proves the humanity of fetuses. Developmental biology, Scott Gilbert, in his textbook Developmental Biology, Scott Gilbert explains organism completeness. He ventures onto the scientific idea of what creates a singular organism and discovers that a new human life is brought into the world when both egg and sperm meet. The classification of a species from fertilization to death starts at fertilization because the species does not change. Sperm and egg of a species are classified within that one. It is a closed idea, and a blastocyst is as much of the species as it is during conception until death. So, a fetus in the stage of development is as valid of a stage as a child, a toddler, a teenager, and an adolescent. The list goes on, but the principle stays exactly the same. It is what separates the human DNA of a fetus from the other DNA of a human, such as a random piece of skin, is that during its stages of development, such as blastocyst or a zygote or anything within utero, is still the entirety of the DNA. This DNA exists now, will keep existing, and will never exist again after it is exterminated. No argument proves a lack of humanity. An argument of location is invalid. The mention of this argument can bring up the idea of conjoined twins. Because of the location of one and its need to thrive off of the other, does that mean that one has a right to exterminate the other? This argument is false. So if you decide to use the argument of location to justify abortion, it can be proven false by still focusing in on the humanity of the initial being. Therefore, abortion is the action that intentionally murders a human being. Abortion is an action of murder because it is the intentional act of killing. Abortions are done chemically. There are so many different tools, and it's all attributed to the different times of gestation. Students for Life reports on all the abortion procedures, such as chemical abortion, which kills the fetus within the womb and forces contractions to expel the body inside. This is done without medical assistance and is done for multitudes of reasons within the corrupt abortion industry. Abortions are done by using suctioned or tooth clamps later on, like the one that I showed at the beginning of this speech. The delivery of dead fetuses occurs with assistance. Abortion is successful if life ceases, which obviously proves the idea that abortion in the beginning is murder. Successful abortions are labeled if the fetus dies, and unsuccessful abortions are labeled as such if the fetus survives and lives through birth. Live action highlights an abortion survival in one of their articles. They also say that abortions have to be the death of a living baby to be classified as successful. Every abortion procedure is done to kill a human being intentionally. Abortion should be outlawed in the United States. I call my audience to seek their pro-life institutions, such as volunteering with Students for Life of America or Live Action. Find out facts and educate yourself about abortion. I call you all to help those who are oppressed and change your minds about the issue. Abortion is an act of murder due to the humanity of each and every victim, and the inherent human, biblical, and God-given right to not be murdered is attributed to every single fetus. Every person should have the right to reject murder, and people in utero deserve those same fundamental rights.